Welcome back, everyone. I'm so delighted that you're with us on 33 Founders today because I'm here with Diana Goodwin, the founder and president of AquaMobile Swim School. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Jenna. Looking forward to it.
So, Diana, I'd love to start out with a great insight from Scott Belkey that I think perfectly describes your work. He said, success lies in the intersection of three things: genuine interest, skills, and opportunities. You've been in the swim space for over a decade now. Can you take us through the evolution of AquaMobile Swim School from when you were doing it by yourself with Swim for Life Aquatics?
Sure. So that was actually one of my first jobs. I was a swim instructor myself. And I'm going to take myself back to a point where actually I almost didn't become a swim instructor because I was taking swim lessons at a community pool, and I refused to get in. I would sit on the edge of the pool shivering and not wanting to go in. And my parents enrolled me in private swim lessons eventually. And after the very first lesson with Miss Dawn, it was at her house. She had a warm pool at her house. At the end of the lesson, she called my mom over and she threw me in the water. And I popped up and brought myself to the edge. And I must have been 4 years old at the time, 3 or 4. And ever since then, I've loved swimming. And so, I'm passionate about sharing that with other people because I think it's such an important skill. And if I hadn't have had the right guidance, I might not be here talking to you today. But I met the right instructor. We had the one-on-one lessons, and I then went on to become a swim instructor myself. And when I was 19, I started, Swim for Life Aquatics, where I would go to clients' homes and teach them how to swim. And that all began because I would be working at a community center pool where I was given, 8 kids every half an hour. And there were some kids that would always struggle because, they didn't have the confidence or the skills. And it wasn't that they couldn't do it. They didn't have the capability. They just needed some more one-on-one time. And in a group situation, I just couldn't do that. So I really wanted to give people that one-on-one attention and really invest in their swimming skills. And that's why I decided to do Swim for Life Aquatics. And from there, I did that, in university. And from there, I actually got an internship at Bain and Company doing management consulting. So I couldn't teach the lessons anymore, but I loved the business. I loved running my own thing. I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial streak. And so I got friends to step in and teach clients instead. And so that kind of gave me my first taste of, what would now become, years later, AquaMobile. And, so all throughout my time at Bain, I kind of kept the business running very, I was traveling a lot, working very long hours. So I didn't really have a lot of time to put towards it. But, the couple hours a week that I was spending on Swim for Life Aquatics showed me how much I loved being an entrepreneur. And it kind of got to a point where I said, if I were putting the amount of time I'm putting into management consulting, if I were to put that into my own company, I could be doing, I can live off that, and I can be having a much bigger impact than I felt like I was having at my other job. And so I went off and actually I did my MBA. I did a 1-year MBA at Kellogg in Chicago. And I used that year to work on rebranding, rebuilding what would become now AquaMobile Swim School, which is what it's called today. And I used that time to really work on fleshing out a business plan that would help us scale across Canada and the United States. Because I'm Canadian. I started Swim for Life in Toronto, and I knew at the end of the day the US is a much bigger market, and that's where I wanted to be. And that's how AquaMobile began. And so we started in the Greater Toronto area, then moved into Florida. And once I'd understood the American market, the best ways to recruit instructors, to market to customers, and had the tech component down, I then, for the next season, which would have been 2014, we decided to kind of scale in many different states at once, and that's really what got the ball rolling on things.
Can you discuss some of the lessons you learned expanding into that first market in South Florida and how that shaped your expansion model today?
Yeah. So I used my time in Florida to test all sorts of different marketing techniques. I was playing around a lot with different digital marketing techniques, but also on the ground marketing techniques. We would I tested out having a couple different branch managers to see how they could market to the local communities, either directly through condos, through daycares, different on the ground things like that. And it really showed me that for me anyways, digital marketing was the way to go. It's where we had great success, and also we could measure that success too. It was much harder to do that with a lot of the on the ground marketing, and to be honest, I was very happy with that finding, because that meant digital marketing is something that you can easily replicate in different areas. You don't necessarily need a lot of people down on the ground in all of these different areas. So I was happy to see that, because I could then much easier to replicate that in a short amount of time than to hire bodies to be in all of these different cities.
What have you found works really well with the digital marketing?
It's always evolving, and I think you always have to be adapting to what's going on. So I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of making sure your organic rankings, so that you're creating good content for your website that's relevant to people, so that you rank well organically. A mixture of different paid advertising. And this is something that it's going to be more and more, I think, challenging for people to decide where do they really want to focus, because there's so many options now. There's, AdWords was kind of for the longest time the big one, but now, Facebook has come a long way with their marketing. You can now market on, on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram are just kind of right in there as well, starting to get in there. So it's a lot of different things. So I think you have to kind of have a good strategy where you've got multiple touch points, but also going forward, I think it's going to be important to not get caught trying to do all of these different things and not
focus. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get stuck in this place where you're not really succeeding at anything because you're trying to do too many different things. So that's I could see that being one of the future challenges if companies aren't careful.
What's one lesson during that time in Miami that you had to learn the hard way about expansion that you're no longer exercising as you move into new cities?
Well, one of the first things that comes to mind was when we first started into Florida, actually, was recruiting instructors. It was much different than in Canada. So in Canada, for example, a lot of the instructors that we hire are at universities and colleges, and it's kind of their full-time job for the spring and summer months is with AquaMobile. In the States, it was much different. So that was kind of the first place we started recruiting, was the colleges and universities in Florida, and we were not having much success at all. Like, it was very different. Whereas I think Craigslist is quite popular in Florida. It wasn't so much in Canada at the time. So that's definitely something I had to adjust, and actually, because that at first we couldn't quite figure out what was so different about Florida that we weren't getting the same response rates through the universities, and so that really encouraged us to step up our game, and we weren't going to be able to be one dimensional like we were in our recruiting at first in Canada. We were going to have to get more creative and come up with different places. And we're always getting more creative on the recruiting front, because we want to hire the best talent possible. And so we try and leave no stone unturned.
For your swim instructors too, they're all vetted through your team.
Yes. Yeah, we spend a lot of time making sure that we have the right people at AquaMobile. So, we start with a pretty thorough application form that they fill out. If we like what we see based on their experience, their history, certifications, things like that, we'll then invite them to do a video interview. And that's really important for us, the video aspect, so that we can actually, I want to know what their personality is like. It's not enough to hear someone answer the questions over the phone. I want to, I want to see them think on their feet. Okay, if they're given this question, how do they react, and what's their personality like? Because at the end of the day, they can be the most knowledgeable swim instructor in the world, but if they don't have a warm personality that's going to connect with the parents and the kids, then
just toss the kid in.
no one's going to listen to them. So that's a huge thing. And then we do our background checks, reference checks. So it's a pretty thorough process. We want to make sure we've got good quality instructors, and all of our instructors, we don't hire brand new instructors. We're looking for instructors that already have experience, so that they can teach anywhere from beginners to more advanced skills as well.
What are some of the questions you like to ask during that video interview?
Mm-hmm. So we give them different scenarios. So we like to say, what are some of the songs and games you would use in a class teaching a 3-year-old, for example. So I want to kind of, with that, I'm trying to get at like the creativity, beyond just the skill part.
Like the pancake song.
Exactly, the pancakes. And actually, we have a YouTube Learn to Swim video series that we
it's
just.
Great.
Did you see? We have the pancake song in there.
That's where I learned about it.
And so, yeah, we want to make it fun for the kids. So I want to know that the instructors have the songs and games that will keep the kids engaged for the full time of the lesson. And then just also, one of my other questions I like to ask is, you're given a complete beginner, never been in the water. What are the steps, from being a complete beginner to teaching them front crawl, freestyle. So then, I want to try and see the instructor walk through, basically that question gets at the crux of like, okay, here are the step-by-step process that I would need to do. And so you can really see that, because there's an order I'm looking for. If someone just automatically jumps in and says, okay, well, you get them starting their arms going, I'm like, no, like there's so many things you have to do first, like getting them comfortable in the water, bubbles, breathing, before you can even get to the front crawl portion. So those type of questions really separate out an experienced instructor from someone who doesn't have that experience, or has maybe only taught a few people. Like, you can really start to separate the instructors with those types of questions.
When it comes to the instructors, now you guys have over 750 in over 20, well, actually probably more than 22 cities, because you're in 20 states. And there's, and then within those states, especially ones like California and Texas, where all cover all of LA County, all of Orange County, and it just kind of goes from there. So many cities, including some small areas too, where there might only be one or two instructors. So and that's the beauty of technology, is being able to kind of serve those smaller areas. So sorry, I digress. No, having those instructors, so you have so many instructors and each one of them represents your brand. Yeah. Not being able to interact with them always face to face or meet them, how do you ensure that they're going to represent AquaMobile the way that the core team that you've built in Toronto would represent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we have we have Mindy she's kind of the main point of contact that we have at AquaMobile. So it's really important to us to make sure that the instructors feel connected to AquaMobile, because if they feel connected to us, they're going to want to represent themselves and the brand the best way possible. So really making them feel like they're a part of the team, even if they never get a chance to meet some of us in person. So we're constantly kind of reaching out to them through our Facebook group and through emails, reaching out and just saying, hey, just checking in, how are things, and keeping them engaged that way is really important to us. And we do kind of we do set standards and say, hey, these are some recommendations, that of how you can put your best foot forward, and here's kind of some like a good way to break down the skills on a level by level basis. So we do try and create some, some type of helpful materials for them to guide them as well.
And then how are you evaluating their performance to see which instructors you want to keep on?
It's a combination of things. So we rely heavily on feedback from our customers. So we do ask, to tell us like how their lessons have been going, whether we have multiple check-in points with our customers to make sure that things are on track. And if something has fallen off track, we want to know about it. We don't ever want to hear, the next season, oh, we were unhappy with the instructor. We don't ever want it to be a surprise. So we're always reaching out to customers to find out, what's going on. And the good news is the vast majority of customers are very happy with their instructors, which is great because that means we've done a good job of screening them and making sure that it's a right fit between the customer and the instructor. But yeah, we rely heavily on that. And we can also tell just even the interactions that we have with the instructors as well when it comes to different bookings. That helps us tell us as well, okay, is this a fit? Is there something kind of a flag, like a yellow flag or red flag that's been raised with an instructor that, we get a bad feeling about for the long term. And so we kind of keep those things in mind as well when evaluating.
So that's something that you're constantly doing, right? You hear a couple of bad reviews and you can't have someone on the platform, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, where it comes, for us, what's concerning is, if someone, and we've had it, sometimes people are, they've been with us for all season, they're superstar instructor, and then towards the end of the season, they just kind of not as responsive as they had been. Maybe they miss an instructor time or do something that's kind of like, okay, we need to evaluate like what's going on. Let's reach out to them because we can't have this continuing. So it's constantly evaluating them to make sure that they belong as part of the AquaMobile team still.
When you think about the last 3 years and leading the team, I love this insight from Heidi Roizen when she said that as an entrepreneur, and really it applies to life, you have to prepare for an imperfect path along the way. What are some of the early challenges that you guys had to overcome?
Let's see, early challenges. It's funny. It's an interesting question because it's one of those things that, like, at the time they seemed like challenges, and now I've been lucky. I wouldn't say there's been any crazy, massive challenges.
Oh, that's good.
Well, at least now they've been minimized in my mind, where they don't seem as crazy challenging. I think, for me, there are challenges. There are for sure. One of the first challenges was setting up. And this might be kind of a boring challenge, but for me, as a Canadian, breaking into the American market and setting things up, the structure of the business in the U.S. and being taken seriously by the American market. That was one of the things I was really worked to mitigate because, as a Canadian, we're always used to American companies coming to Canada and, selling things, but it's really rare for Americans to see a Canadian company coming to the U.S. And so I had to, at first there was a little bit of stigma around that, and are you a real company? Is this a scam? Is this a scam? I'm like, no, this is not a scam. Trust me. If it was, I would pick something much different if I was going to. But there was a hesitation that way. I think a mixture because we are also merging. Especially 3 years ago, it was rare to find a swim lesson company using technology the way we were. It was different. It was new. It wasn't something they were used to. So I really had to, I had to work and make sure that, we had everything set up in the U.S. from proper U.S. office, proper U.S. Corporation, just so that the American market could feel more comfortable with us. And our revenue has been growing significantly every year, and now the U.S. revenue is over 70% of our total revenue. So it's really been, and that's on numbers that have been growing too in both Canada and the U.S. So it just shows you kind of I knew the American market was where we would see big revenue gains, and so I wanted to make sure we did it correctly. That was one challenge. I mean, even getting I've been bootstrapping the company. I love bootstrapping. I love that I'm kind of growing it in. And when you're bootstrapping, every decision makes so much of a difference, right? There's not this big massive
Do or die, yeah.
there's not this big massive war chest of several $1,000,000 where I can go and be a little more lackadaisical with how I'm spending the money. Like, everything matters, and getting the technology right. And it's a constant ongoing process, but getting that to the point where it could then allow us to expand as quickly as we wanted to, that was challenging, because when you're bootstrapping, having developers is a really expensive piece of the equation, and we now have developers on the team, but that's only been a recent thing. Before that, it was hiring outside expertise, working very closely with them to make sure that my vision was realized the way I wanted it from a tech standpoint.
I'm really thrilled that you brought up those two topics, because that's a question I was excited to ask you. Now you guys are, I shouldn't even say now because it's been quickly 3 years in, you're already the largest at-home swim school in North America. So huge congratulations there. As you scale and as the revenue is doubling and continuing to get larger, how do you ensure that you remain in that scrappy state of mind where you're thinking, oh, we're 3 years in, now I can just throw money at this problem for it to solve itself?
It's not as hard as you would think, because that's the mentality I came from. So for me, it's even a little more challenging, where I have to remind myself, it's like, okay, you can actually
spend a little bit of money.
You can ease up the reins a little bit and put more money into that now. So it's definitely now at a point in the business where now that there is more cash flow that can be used, there is more planning that's required to make sure that I'm not over or underspending. Whereas before, it was just kind of like there was a need, I saw it, and I made sure it was done in the most cost-effective way possible. So it's a fine balance, I would say. But because if anything, I need to make sure, and I'm aware of it, like, I want to make sure I'm not ever holding the company back by not spending enough, because there are times when you need to spend if you're going to grow. And I mean, with technology, that was never, that was always going to be, I knew I had to spend on technology. That was never going to come up I had to be careful with it, of course, because you can go way out of control on tech spend. So it's really managing, balancing to make sure I'm not underspending, because if you underspend, you're not going to grow the company enough in the future. And if you overspend, then you can end up, there's been some big names out there that, companies like, HomeJoy, that had raised $40 million, and, in less than 3 years since being established, they're gone. And I don't want that to happen.
That's a scary thought.
It's scary. It's scary that, they blew through that much money, $40 million. I mean, and yes, maybe there were lawsuit issues from the contractors and this and that, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think having that much money, it can put you in a weird position where all you care about is top line, is that revenue growth, and you're not thinking, are your customers happy? Are you investing enough to keep them happy, as opposed to just trying to show the venture capitalists that your
valuation and
just playing the valuation game.
When it comes to underspending, I'm really excited that you brought that up, because I'd never thought of that. What's one area that the last year you realize, hey, we can finally add some capital here to really take it to the next level?
Yeah, so I would say, when I looked back kind of on my marketing spend in 2014, I realized for me, percentage, the money that we were spending on marketing and advertising as a percent of revenue was in retrospect lower than it should have been. So this year I made sure, I was like, you know what, let's increase kind of our marketing spend as a percentage of revenue. And so I've been tracking to make sure that let's see what happens when we spend more. So that's where one area where I've loosened the reins a little bit.
When it comes to deciding where you're going to loosen the reins, do you typically do like one area at a time? Is it more like let's try a couple things?
hmm Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, within marketing itself, yeah, we tried a bunch of new things this year. As I was kind of alluding to before, there's so many different directions now with digital advertising and marketing that you can go in. I wanted to kind of understand the new different things that we hadn't tried. So spending, what works, what doesn't work, how should we best approach it? I love testing, and so that's kind of where I went. And then when I see something's not working, it's like, okay, let's pull back quickly on that one and adjust. Yeah, I mean, even like, for example, technology spend, kind of 2014 to kind of first quarter 2015, that was like a big spend because we released a new registration system, like our third version of it. So now I think, for the next little bit, like, there was a big outflow of capital from that, and that's going to ease down a bit. And we decided, okay, instead we'll go up on marketing. So it's, yeah, it just kind of depends on the business need as well.
As you focus on these new business needs and the expansion, what are your high line goals for the next few months?
In terms of like growth in the business, or what I'm focusing on in the
Just
business?
the business in general.
Yeah. So we're kind of coming to the point. So AquaMobile tends to be a seasonal business. Seasonal in that, registrations start kind of, let's call it March, April, May, June. Like, they kind of ramp up, and then the lessons start a couple months later, and then they kind of taper off. We have lessons going year round, but really the bulk of the lessons end kind of in August as the kids go back to school. So for me, that's really a good point in time, and that's the point in time we're at now, where I can really take a look at kind of things move so fast during busy season. It's hard to make too many big adjustments. So now I can kind of see, okay, like, let's reflect on what happened this past season, what went well, what didn't go well, what we can improve on for next year. And so that's what I'm personally really working on right now, is starting to kind of gather all the data and reflect on it, of what things went really well and what things I want to improve on for next year, and in building those out, either in terms of processes or whatever else is required. And so I personally like that seasonality, because it gives me a time to reflect and then improve for the next year. So in this case, for 2016. I mean, the one downside of that is that it's not like I can ever, when it came to even expanding the business, when we went all of a sudden and expanded into all of these new cities and states, it's not something that I could do kind of, on every month, grow a little bit more.
So that's hard.
Yeah, you really have one shot a year to do this. So,
No
you know,
pressure.
you gotta get it right. You have a small window of opportunity to do the right hiring and the right marketing, or else you've kind of lost that opportunity. So you can't expand into a new city in September, because you'll put all of this time and money into trying to hire people and trying to find new customers, and it's going to fall on deaf ears. So yeah, it's really important to kind of have your ducks lined up in a row, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is preparing for that for next year.
As you talk about the different things that you guys are working on, one of the things you've highlighted in a YC article was the importance of adaptability for startups. And I love the way you said it. You said, if you don't adapt to your customers' needs, someone's going to come in and they're going to do it for you.
Yes.
How do you maintain that level of adaptability at AquaMobile?
I think it's staying really close. First of all, understanding what the customers want, and what they wanted 2 years ago is not necessarily what they want today, and what they're going to want next year. We're living in a world where things are changing at a rapid speed. in large part because of technology, and people want what they want when they want it. And so we're always trying to like really listen to our clients to say, and by clients, not just the end user of the swim lessons, but also the instructors ourselves. Like that, the instructors are our customers as well, and what do they want? What's important to them? And really understanding that so that we can change, course correct or change gears and offer different things to keep them happy. So really staying flexible. And I think by having we've got a great team of customer service reps, and just really continuing to inform them, these are the changes this is what we're changing, this is what we're finding among our customers, keep this in mind when you're talking to them. And just change. Yeah, things have changed. It used to be, I think, in the service industry, it used to be really easy. Like customers were easier to please.
No longer.
No, and you know what? I was bringing it up how even now there are customers who will call us and they are like, well, I want a lesson for this afternoon or tomorrow, and it's like, we try and get our instructors out there as quickly as possible, but our competitors take 5 business days or longer. Like they can take a couple weeks to set up lessons. We try and go for the instant thing, but for something like swim lessons, we can't have someone coming to you
30 minutes later.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll be able to, but right now, the instructors still have other things going on or other customers where they can't immediately be sitting around rushing. And as someone mentioned it to me, they're like, look, it makes sense. Like it's changing that way everywhere. Look at even taxis, right? Like when you used to call a taxi, you'd be told you have to wait 15, 20 minutes. Okay, whatever. And then your cab will show up. But now with Uber, right? Like if your cab is not there in like 3 to 5 minutes, like you're like, what is this?
I might as well just walk. Yeah.
I have to wait more than 5 minutes to get a driver here. That's insane, right? But like a couple years ago, like before Uber came along, you never would have even complained about 5 minutes. You would have been you just took 15, 20 minutes. That was the standard, and you just accepted it. But now it's, as we get more progressive, demands become higher. And so we're always trying to live up to the higher demands that customers have.
I want to take a couple of minutes in light of that adaptability and chat about your team. How big are you guys right now?
Gosh, so we've got, it fluctuates by season. So we're just kind of wrapping up the busy season. So we've got, let's see, I mean, in the office I've got, during peak season, we'll probably have about up to 8 different people doing dealing with customer inquiries. So we've tapered off now that it's quieting down for the off season, and then we also have right now a couple full-time staff who are year-round dedicated to marketing and recruiting. And in the spring summer months, we'll ramp that up so that there'll be a team of them. So gosh, we probably go from, right now kind of year round, we're probably at about 5. And then in the peak season, that number can grow up to 12 to 15.
Oh man, the 5 of you are hustling.
It's a hustle. But before that, I mean, if you'd asked me this question a year ago, it really would have been, 2 full-time and like a couple part-time workers. Like we've really ramped up.
How does it feel that the company's grown?
It's weird. It's a lot different, I've got kind of my marketing and recruiting team. They're based in Toronto, and then we've got our customer service reps throughout Canada and the U.S. Depending, we run the company virtually. I'm happy to hire whoever is the best person for the job, whether they are in California, somewhere in Florida, Arizona. I don't care. I just want the best person for the job, and luckily our company structure allows that. But it does feel weird. It used to be, my role has changed in the company. I've always managed a bit of everything, but now I expect more from the staff under me. I don't want to be telling them kind of, hey, this is we need a promotion. Now I want them to come to me and say, hey, we need a promotion at this time. I've got too many things to remember. And so as the company grows, my expectations of my staff, like my core team, grow. And that's where I really need them to kind of grow with the company, or I need to kind of bring someone in who can take on that increased role.
How do you work alongside each of your team members to monitor, and celebrate their growth?
Hmm. So it's, in Toronto with the marketing and recruiting team, it's great. Like I can work when they need more time to kind of work together. I can be there with them. I'm always encouraging my staff. They know they've seen kind of the way the company has grown, and how the needs of the company have changed, meaning that they need to give more. And I'm always encouraging them to grow, and to try and think through problems on their own, because ultimately that's going to help the business. So, I mean, I try, and when I see something kind of going off kilter, I try and correct that right away. But I'm also, when I see something that they've taken the initiative of something that I wasn't expecting, I make sure to acknowledge that as well, so that they don't always feel like I'm, always kind of correcting things. It's an important balance, but I also do, need them to know when I need them to step up, and I do I try and have open and honest conversations with them. I think keeping it, open, honest, and direct is what, I also can't be constantly praising them, because then they're never going to know when things are when I need more from them. So it's a balance.
When it comes to having your team members bring up new ideas, like you were just saying, you don't want to have to say, hey, it's June, we need a promotion. You want them to come in and do it. One of the things that you shared in another YEC article was that you'd love for your team members to come up and say exactly that. Hey, it's
Yeah.
June, let's run this promotion. How do you encourage that type of environment?
I give my teammates a lot of responsibility. They know they've got it, so it is out there. It is ready for them to like run with it. There's never me. I don't like to micromanage. I don't have time to micromanage. So they've got they've got the opportunity to do it. I just need them to take it amongst themselves. And when I see, even if I'm talking to other like entrepreneurial friends of mine, if and I sent it, like there was one, a friend of mine who has a startup, and she showed me an email of this new marketing hire of hers, and like they just run a promotion, and he came to her with all of these metrics. She didn't even have to ask for it, and I forwarded that to all of my staff, like not just the marketing staff, but the whole team. Because I said, look, guys, this is best practices. See what they did. Like I didn't like, his boss didn't have to ask for it. Like he just came with insights, with next steps, with what he thought was the path forward. And so I do try, and if I see something that someone else has done, I will try and share that, so that everyone can kind of have a concrete example of what a best practice is. Instead of me just kind of saying something, I try and show them real examples.
How about for you as the leader? How are you constantly challenging yourself to grow?
Luckily, as the company grows,
Every day.
there's more and more challenges. Yeah, I mean, it's always a constant. I love learning, and I think as an entrepreneur, it's just I'm learning an incredible amount. And I think now, like from my own personal, as the team grows, one of the areas that I need to grow into is being a better coach. And that's not something, when I had, you know, one, two people last year, it wasn't as important. But now I need to coach them and teach them more leadership skills themselves that maybe last year they didn't need, because I could kind of be their direct leader. But now I need them to lead other people. So I need to step up my coaching game. So that's something I'm working on a lot more now than I was last year. It's more on my radar, is how can I be a better coach, and empower my employees, at a higher level.
What are some things that you're doing to achieve that, and resources you're using to learn?
Yeah, so definitely leveraging one of my advisors. That's his specialty is he loves coaching, and he's been an advisor for about a year and a half now, and it's never really come up until our last meeting. And when I started bringing it up, he says, "This is what I love is coaching. Like I will help you with that." So actually, when we meet in about a month's time, we've kind of started. On that talk, but we're going to have a more in-depth talk there. Just even resources, leveraging other entrepreneurial friends who are maybe further along in their business in terms of size of their team. So they've already had to grow and become a better coach so that their company and employees can thrive. So leveraging them, learning, like just absorbing as much as I can from them, and also from different podcasts, different books. Especially now, it's one book that I love, and I keep referring back to it, is a book called Who. I'm blanking on the author, but it's a great book to really help you ask the right questions so that you can hire the right person for the job. And I know a lot of people have read it, and it's just it's really good and really a good plan. Like it gives you kind of a good plan of how to make sure you hire the right person. And it's especially for me, it's the bigger the company gets, I need people with more at a more senior role, and I don't want to hire the wrong person. It's especially as the salaries get bigger, that's the worst thing. That's what I'm afraid of. So that's a book I highly recommend.
What's a great piece of advice that you've received thus far from one of your mentors or advisors helping you with that?
In terms of like the coaching aspect, I think having regular check-ins, having a set check-ins with your key people, whether it's once a week, and then maybe a bigger group team meeting every 2 weeks, but really having concrete check-in points.
So you're big on one-on-ones.
What's that?
You're big on one-on-ones then.
Yeah. So and just having those regular check-ins and holding people, if you're going to have a goal, hold people accountable to those goals, but give them the tools and the check-in and the guidance so that they can reach those goals instead of just kind of, okay, here's a goal.
Good luck.
Let's talk about it in a month's time. Like giving them the guidance and the tools along the way so that they can meet the goal. So really that, helping empower them.
And one of the tools you use is Asana, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, Asana. I have my creative periods too, where I will come to my team with all of these. Sometimes I can't sleep or I wake up and all of these ideas have come to me. So I come to them in the morning. I'm like, guys, you're gonna have to add a lot of this stuff to Asana, and we're gonna have to prioritize them and assign them. And so Asana is great for that, because there's so many things to do, especially when you're bootstrapping, right? There's just always things to do, and it's really prioritizing them is important. So because I get all these ideas, so Asana is critical for the team.
All right, last question, Diana. If you could imagine the best possible future for AquaMobile Swim, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the way there, but it would really be to be able to every year teach millions of students how to swim. Every year there's new people out there who need to learn how to swim, and I think it's such an important skill. I want everyone to be able to have the AquaMobile experience. So I want to be able to reach as many people and make an impact on as many lives as possible.
How can everyone get involved with AquaMobile and start using it and tell their friends?
Yeah, so I guess we're pretty active on social media. Our website is...
Watch the videos, they're really good.
Thank you. Yeah, and we just launched, I mean, even if there's parents that just want to learn more about us, and even if it's, even if you don't buy any lessons from us, we have free content online that we've created just to try and reach, as I said, to reach as many people as possible, to get them to learn that swimming can be a fun thing. So as you mentioned, our Learn to Swim video series is online on YouTube and also on our website. So please take a look at that, especially if you've got like for kids out there. Each video has lots of songs and games to help them learn the basic skills of swimming. And then, yeah, you can check out our blog. Always has great content, and we're on Facebook and Twitter as well. So our Twitter handle is @AquaMobile Swim, and on Facebook we're just facebook.com/AquaMobile.
Great. Thank you so much for being with me today. You shared so much valuable insight.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna. Happy to be here.